I'd now like to introduce a young man, and that means he's younger than me, Nate Sherwood. A little over a year or so ago, he decided to reconnect with me, which I'm thoroughly grateful for. However, I'm a bit concerned. When he saw me for the first time after 20 years, he goes, "Pat, you haven't changed a bit." So either he's a great liar or his eyesight's gone to hell in a handbasket. I don't know. Not a rosy prospect either way. Seriously, I think you'll thoroughly enjoy his story. Students, please, please, please pay very close attention to this young man.
You know, just like the gentleman who's up before me saying it was for a crowd of 40 people, I heard the same con over here. So, yeah, be careful. Don't ever play a game of cards, I think, with Pat. He's got a good poker face. I actually fell for that. You know, I got to say it's an honor to be here today. I went to, back when it was called Thomas Edison, right after the Learning Tree, when Jocelyn was still around the program, and Pat was, running the whole program with her and whatnot between 1993 and 1995. And, it was interesting. Here I am 20 years later, and my wife has to hear stories about Patrick McGuire all the time. She thought he was, mythical, like, Nessie or the Loch Ness Monster or something of that nature, And it was very comical. So I was like, let's just try to find this guy. There's this thing called the internet now. I might as well use it once in a while. And I Google, to find out Patrick McGuire's still at Edison. So I called him and told him thank you so much for his tutorage and, all his help and all that jazz. And next thing I know, I'm flying back out to Portland to give a speech. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome indeed. It's interesting, in the late 80s and early 90s, I was diagnosed with Tourette's, first of all, and then after that, I was diagnosed with dyslexia a couple years after that. And long story short, at that time, people like me, we were calling learning disabled. The word learning difference was not common like it is now. And everywhere I went, you're disabled, there's no hope for you. It was almost like if you took an old broken VCR to someone, they're like, we can't fix this. They don't make the parts for it anymore, buddy. Like, good luck, go to the next place, So my parents were shuffling me around from school to school and whatnot. And, my mother did some research and found a place called the Learning Tree. And I went to the Jesuit campus and, just kind of sat in on a class. And I fell in love with the school. I started hearing the term learning different. You're just learning different. Don't worry about it. You're not disabled. You can still accomplish everything academic-wise that anyone else can, but you're just a different kind of category. It's kind of like, a Tesla versus a gas-powered car. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm the 5.0 version of this. I know that's a touchy subject with Edison, so I shouldn't bring up Tesla. I know him and Thomas had a little problem there, so I should probably be careful. They might both be rolling in the grave right now about this speech, but that's my only analogy, loose-lit analogy there. It was an interesting time, though. I have so many quotes from over the years I could hold you hostage in here all day talking about them, so I won't bore you with all that. One that comes to mind is things that are different should not be hated, but yet, I'm so sorry. I'm about to get choked up here. Things that are different should not be hated, but just accepted. And I thought that was a beautiful quote. That was from Patrick Fleming. Yeah, your father, yeah. And, and I thought that was so neat. Patrick Fleming in his English class told me that, and I remember being like, that's so great. And through my whole life, I've been like that. Anytime I've met anyone with any disability or any difference, I've always had an open mind about that. And it's a neat school because at an early age, it teaches you not to be judgmental. It teaches you not to be, negative in any shape or form. Hate only breeds hate, and, kindness breeds kindness. So, it was really neat to see the compassion, what the faculty does at Edison is amazing. To use an analogy again, another thing I learned at Thomas Edison, I learned a lot of those from Joan of Arc and Bill, the science teacher, and I could go on for hours. But, one of the things I learned there was oh, wow, I'm getting so choked up here, I'm sorry. Apologize for that. But, I feel that baby feels. I'm not a morning person either, so I relate to that. It was very interesting because, at that, everything about that time period in my life was, and just like everybody, when we're a teenager, we're so impressionable. You have so many different forces coming at you from every different angle. And it was so nice to have teachers that were well-trained to deal with people like us. It felt like I went from the middle school I went to that was like a boot camp from the Marine Corps to Juilliard. It was, something like that. You know what I mean? It was like, wow, there's a whole different environment. They deal with discipline completely differently, here, and they deal with these problems completely differently, and they would actually listen to you, and you weren't just another number. You were actually a human being and treated like a human being. Years after Edison, after I graduated, I went working into the skateboard industry. Another thing that Patrick McGuire taught me is, you got to do what you love in life. If you don't do what you love in life, it's a long time to be miserable. So I said, all right, that's a good quote. I don't want to be, sitting around for the rest of, 30, 40 years working somewhere, punching a clock, not exactly thrilled with what I did. And, I started a skateboard shop 5 years ago, and it's been open since, and running very, very well. And my employees get to hear Patrick McGuire quotes all the time, so, they're sick of that. One of the things, if they're late to work, I make them listen to Neil Diamond. That was one of the things that Patrick would do to us. If we were late to class, you'd be like, all right, you're going to be in the Neil Diamond fan club. So we'd go in the timeout room, and he had a cassette, and he'd play Sweet Caroline. Yes, it's still scarring for me to watch a Red Sox game on TV, because I'm like, oh, they play Sweet Caroline. I'm like, oh, boy, I got to jump back here. This reminds me of high school. Am I late for something? I'm freaking out, in the seventh inning and, whatnot. But I'm telling you, I could go on for hours about quotes like that. I mean, I could write a book this thick about just my years at Edison and the quotes from Patrick McGuire, just himself, let alone all the other teachers there that all had great things. Joan of Art was her nickname. No joke. That was art teacher, Joan of Art, yes. And just like Joan of Arc, good play on words there. And she had a very beautiful painting and kind of a spoof on the old Andy Warhol soup cans that said, labels are for jars, not people. And that stood out to me for years too. And so many things I could go on for hours that I learned there that made me overcome my differences instead of disabilities, and gave me positive energy, and helped me go into the workforce, into the adult world with a lot of ingredients. I would say the ingredients to success for a learning different person are just as important to Thomas Edison, and as important as to us from Thomas Edison, is butter is to French cooking. So it's definitely a very an awesome establishment, and I thank you for your time.